Chapter 14. Fasting. Kitab al-Siyam. Chapter 767. The beginning of the ordainment of fasting. Narrated Abdullah ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas explained the following Quranic verse. O ye who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you during the lifetime of the Prophet. When the people offered night prayer, they were asked to abstain from food and drink and intercourse with women. They kept fast till the next night. A man betrayed himself and had intercourse with his wife after he had offered the night prayer, and he did not break his fast. So Allah the Exalted intended to make it fasting easy for those who survived, thus providing a concession and utility. Allah the Glorified said, Allah knoweth what ye used to do secretly among yourselves. By this Allah benefited the people and provided concession and ease to them. Great Hassan Sahih. Al-Bara bin Asib said, when a man fasted and slept, he could not sit. When a man fasted and slept, he could not eat till another night, like it. Sarma bin Qais al-Ansari came to his wife while he was fasting and asked her, do you have something to eat? She replied, no, let me go and seek something for you. So she went out, and sleep overcame him. She came back and said to him, you are deprived of food. He fainted before noon. He used to work all day long at his land. This was mentioned to the Prophet, so the following verse was revealed. Permitted to you on the nights of the fasts is the approach to your wives. They are your garments, and ye are their garments. Allah knoweth what yes ye used to do secretly amongst yourselves. But he turned to you and forgave you. So now associate with them and seek what Allah hath ordained for you, and eat and drink until the white thread of dawn appears to you. He recited up to the words of dawn. Great Sahih. Chapter 768. Abrogation of the saying of Allah Most High, as for those who can fast with difficulty is a ransom. Salama bin al-Aqwa said, after the revelation of the verse, for those who can do it with hardship is a ransom, the feeding of one that is indigent. Is one of us intended to leave fast and pay ransom? He could do so until the verse following it was revealed and abrogated the previous verse. Great Sahih. Ibn Abbas explained the Quranic verse, for those who can do it with hardship is a ransom, the feeding of one that is indigent. Said, if one of them wished to pay ransom by providing food to an indigent person, he could pay ransom. Thus his fast was complete. Allah the Exalted pronounced, but he that will give more of his own free will, it is better for him. Again he pronounced, so every one of you who is present at his home during that month should spend it in fasting. But if anyone is ill or on a journey, the prescribed period should be made up by days later. Great Hassan. Chapter 769. Whoever said that it applies to the elderly and pregnant. Ibn Abbas said, the verse concerning the payment of ransom stands valid for pregnant and sucking women. Great Sahih. Narrated Abdullah ibn Abbas, explaining the verse, for those who can do it with hardship is a ransom. The feeding of one that is indigent, he said, this was a concession granted to the aged man and woman who were able to keep fast. They were allowed to leave the fast and instead feed an indigent person for each fast, and a concession to pregnant and suckling women when they apprehended harm to themselves. Great Shad. Chapter 770. The month may be 29 days. Narrated Abdullah ibn Umar, the Prophet said, the month consists of 29 days, but do not fast till you sight it, the moon, and do not break your fast till you sight it. If the weather is cloudy, calculate it 30 days. When the 29th of Shaban came, Ibn Umar would send someone who tried to sight the moon for him. If it was sighted, then well and good. In case it was not sighted, and there was no cloud and dust before him on the horizon, he would not keep fast the next day. If there appeared on the horizon before him cloud or dust, he would fast the following day. Ibn Umar would end his fasting alone with the people and did not follow this calculation. Great Sahih. Great Sahih. Ibn Umar reported the Apostle of Allah as saying, the month consists of 29 days, but do not fast till you sight it, the moon, and do not break your fast till you sight it. If the weather is cloudy, calculate it 30 days. When the 29th of Shaban came, Ibn Umar would send someone who tried to sight the moon for him. If it was sighted, then well and good. In case it was not sighted, and there was no cloud and dust before him on the horizon, he would not keep fast the next day. He would not keep fast the next day. If there appeared on the horizon before him cloud or dust, he would fast the following day. Ibn Umar would end his fasting alone with the people, and did not follow this calculation. Narrated Ayub. Umar bin Abd al-Aziz wrote a letter to the people of Basra. It has reached us from the Messenger of Allah, like the tradition narrated by Ibn Umar. From the Prophet. This version adds, the best calculation is that when we sight the moon of Shaban on such and such date, fasting will being on such and such dates, Allah willing, except they sight the moon before that date. Great Sahih Maktu. Narrated Abdullah ibn Masud. We kept fast for 29 days along with the Prophet, more often than we kept fast for 30 days. Great Sahih. Narrated Abu Bakr, the Prophet, as saying, the 2 months of Eid festival, Ramadan and Dhu al-Hijjah are not defective. Great Sahih. Chapter 771. When the people are mistaken in sighting the crescent. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, the end of Ramadan is on the day when you end it, and the Eid festival of sacrifice is on the day when you sacrifice. The whole of Arafah is the place of staying, and the whole of Mina is the place of sacrifice, and all the roads of Mecca are the place of sacrifice, and the whole of Muzdalifah is the place of staying. Great Sahih. Chapter 772. When sighting the crescent for the month was obscured. Narrated Aisha, Ummul Muminin, the Messenger of Allah used to count the days in Shaban in a manner he did not count any other month. Then he fasted when he sighted the new moon of Ramadan, but if the weather was cloudy, he counted 30 days and then fasted. Great Sahih. Narrated Hudayfa, the Prophet said, do not fast for Ramadan before the coming of the month until you sight the moon or complete the number of 30 days. Then fast until you sight the moon or complete the number of 30 days. Great Sahih. Chapter 773. Whoever said that if it is obscured from you the crescent, then fast 30 days. Narrated Abdullah ibn Abbas, the Prophet said, do not fast 1 day or 2 days just before Ramadan, except in the case of a man who has been in the habit or observing a fast on that day. And do not fast until you sight it, the moon, then fast until you sight it. If a cloud appears on that day, 29th of Ramadan, then complete the number 30 days, and then end the fasting. A month consists of 29 days. Great Sahih. Chapter 774. Regarding preceding Ramadan by fasting at the end of Shaban. Narrated Imran bin Hussein, the Messenger of Allah asked a man, did you fast the last day of Shaban? He replied, no. Did you fast the last day of Shaban? Did you fast the last day of Shaban? He replied, no. He said, if you did not observe a fast, you must fast for a day. One of the 2 narrators said, for 2 days. Great Sahih. One of the 2 narrators said, for 2 days. Great Sahih. Narrated Muawiyah. Abul Asar al-Mughira ibn Farwa said, Muawiyah stood among the people at Dair Mustahil, lying at the gate of Hims. He said, O people, we sighted the moon on such and such day. We shall fast in advance. Anyone who likes to do so may do it. Malik ibn Hubayra as-Sabai stood up and asked, Muawiyah, did you hear the Messenger of Allah say something about this matter, or is this something on the basis of your opinion? He replied, I heard the Messenger of Allah as saying, fast a month in the beginning and in the last. Great Daif. Sulaiman bin Abd al-Rahman al-Dimashqi said about this tradition that Al-Walid said, I heard Abu Amr al-Awsa'i say, the word Sirahu means beginning of the month. Grade Shad Maktu. Narrated Ahmad bin Abd al-Wahid. On the authority of Abu Mushir, he said, Sa'id, that is Ibn Abd al-Aziz, said, the meaning of the word Siraha is in the beginning of it the month, grade Shad. Chapter 775. When the crescent is sighted in a land a night before it is sighted in other lands. Narrated Kurayb that al-Fadl, daughter of al-Harith, sent him to Mu'akiyah in Syria. He said, I came to Syria and performed her work. The moon of Ramadan appeared while I was in Syria. We sighted the moon on the night of Friday. When I came to Median towards the end of the month of Ramadan, Ibn Abbas asked me about the moon. He said, when did you sight the moon? I said, I sighted it on the night of Friday. He asked, did you sight it yourself? I said, yes, and the people sighted it. They fasted, and Muawiyah also fasted. He said, but we sighted it on the night of Saturday. Since then we have been fasting until we complete 30 days, or we sight it. Then I said, are the sighting of the moon by Muawiyah and his fasts not sufficient for us? He replied, no, the Messenger of Allah commanded us to do so. Great Sahih. Al-Hassan said about a person who was in a certain city, he fasted on Monday, and two persons bore witness that they had sighted the moon on the night of Sunday. He said, that man and the people of his city should not fast as an atonement, except that they know for certain that the people of a certain city of Muslims had fasted on Sunday. In that case, they should keep fast as an atonement. Great Sahih Maktu. Chapter 776. That it is disliked to fast the day of doubt. Narrated Ammar Abul Shak reported on the authority of Sila. We were with Ammar on the day when the appearance of the moon was doubtful. The meat of goat was brought to him. Some people kept aloof from eating it. Ammar said, he who keeps fast on this day disobeys Abul Qasim, i.e. the Prophet. Great Sahih. Chapter 777. Regarding whoever connected Shaban with Ramadan. Narrated Abu Huraira, the Messenger of Allah, as saying, do not fast 1 day or 2 days just before Ramadan, except in the case of a man who has been in the habit of observing the particular fast, for he may fast on that day. Great Sahih. Narrated Salama, al-Mu'minin, she never saw the Prophet fasting the whole month except Shaban, which he combined with Ramadan. Great Sahih. Chapter 778. About that being disliked. Narrated Abu Huraira, Abdul Aziz ibn Muhammad said, Abad ibn Kathir came to Medina and went to the assembly of Allah. He caught hold of his hand and made him stand and said, O Allah. He narrates a tradition from his father on the authority of Abu Hurairah, who reported the Messenger of Allah as saying, when the middle of Shaban comes, do not fast. Allah said, O Allah, my father narrated this tradition on the authority of Abu Hurairah from the Prophet. Great Sahih. Chapter 779. Testimony of two men about sighting the crescent of Shawwal. Narrated Abdullah ibn Umar. Hussein ibn al-Harith al-Jadli from the tribe of Jadillah. Qais said, the governor of Mecca delivered a speech and said, the Messenger of Allah took a pledge from us that we should perform the rites of Hajj after sighting the moon. If we do not sight it and two reliable persons bear witness, we should perform the rites of Hajj on the basis of their witness. I then asked Al-Hussein ibn al-Harith, who was the governor of Mecca. He replied, I do not know. He then met me later on and told me. He was Al-Harith ibn Hatib, brother of Muhammad ibn Hatib. The governor then said, there is among you a man who is more acquainted with Allah and his apostle than I. He witnessed this from the Messenger of Allah. He then pointed with his hand to a man. Al-Hussein said, I asked an old man beside me, who is that man to whom the governor has alluded? He said, this is Abdullah ibn Umar, and he spoke the truth. He was more acquainted with Allah than he. He, Abdullah ibn Umar, said, for this is what the Messenger of Allah commanded us to do. Great Sahih. Narrated Ribi b Hiras. On the authority of a man from the companions of the Prophet, people differed among themselves on the last day of Ramadan about the appearance of the moon of Shawwal. Then two Bedouins came and witnessed before the Prophet, swearing by Allah that they had sighted moon the previous evening. So the Messenger of Allah commanded the people to break the fast. The narrated Caliph has added in his version, and that they should proceed to the place of prayer for Eid. Great Sahih. Chapter 780. Regarding the testimony of a single person about seeing the crescent of Ramadan. Narrated Abdullah ibn Abbas. A Bedouin came to the Prophet and said, I have sighted the moon. Al-Hassan added in his version, that is of Ramadan. He asked, do you testify that there is no God but Allah? He replied, yes. He again asked, do you testify that Muhammad is a messenger of Allah? He replied, yes. And he testified that he had sighted the moon. He said, Bilal announced to the people that they must fast tomorrow. Grade Daif. Narrated Ikrimah. Once the people doubted the appearance of the moon of Ramadan and intended neither to offer the Taraweeh prayer nor to keep fast, a Bedouin came from Al-Hara and testified that he had sighted the moon. He was brought to the prophet. He asked, "Do you testify that there is no God but Allah, and that I am the messenger of Allah?" He said, "Yes," and he testified that he had sighted the moon. He commanded Bilal, who announced to the people, to offer the Tarawih prayer and to keep fast. Great Daif. Narrated Abdullah ibn Umar. The people looked for the moon. So I informed the messenger of Allah that I had sighted it. He fasted and commanded the people to fast. Great Sahih. Chapter 781. Stressing the Sahur, the pre-dawn meal. Narrated Amr b al-As, the messenger of Allah, as saying, "The difference between our fasting and that of the people of the book is eating shortly before dawn." Great Sahih. Chapter 782. Whoever called Sahur al-Ghada, breakfast. Narrated Al-Irbad ibn Sariya, the messenger of Allah invited me to a meal shortly before dawn in Ramadan, saying, "Come to the blessed morning meal." Great Sahih. Narrated Abu Huraira, the Prophet, as saying, "How good is the believer's meal of dates shortly before dawn." Great Sahih. Chapter 783. The time of Sahur. Addressing the people, Samura bin Jundub reported the messenger of Allah as saying, "The Adhan, called the prayer of Bilal, should not prevent you from taking a meal shortly before dawn, not does the whiteness of horizon before dawn. In this way, vertically, until it spreads out horizontally." Great Sahih. Narrated Abd Allah bin Masud, the messenger of Allah, as saying, "The summons Adhan of Bilal should not restrain one of you from taking a meal shortly before dawn, for he utters Adhan, or calls for prayer, so that the man at prayer may return and the man asleep may get up. Dawn is not the whiteness which indicates thus in perpendicular." The narrator Musaddad said, Yahya joined his palms, indicating the spread of whiteness vertically until it indicates thus, and Yahya spread out 2 ring fingers of his, demonstrating the spread of whiteness horizontally. Great Sahih. Narrated Talq ibn Ali al-Yamami, the messenger of Allah, said, "Eat and drink. Let not the white and ascending light prevent you from eating and drinking. So eat and drink until the red light spreads horizontally." Great Hassan Sahih. Narrated Adi bi Hatim, when the verse "until the white thread of dawn appear to you distinct from its black thread" was revealed, I took a white rope and a black rope and placed them beneath my pillow, and then I looked at them. But they were not clear to me, so I mentioned it to the messenger of Allah. He laughed and said, "Your pillow is so broad and lengthy, that is, means night and day." The version of the narrator Uthman has, "That is the blackness of night and whiteness of day." Great Sahih. Chapter 784. A man who hears the call while a vessel is in his hand. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, when any of you hears the summons to prayer while he has a vessel in his hand, he should not lay it down till he fulfills his need. Great Hassan Sahih. Chapter 785. The time for the fasting person to break his fast. Narrated Umar. The Prophet as saying, when the night approaches from this side and the day retreats on that side and the sun sets according to the version of Musaddad, he who fasts has reached the time to break it. Great Sahih. Narrated Abd Allah bi Abi Awfa. We went along with the Messenger of Allah while he was fasting. When the sun set, he said to Bilal, Bilal, come down and prepare barley beverage for us. He said, Messenger of Allah, would that you waited for the evening. He said, come down and prepare barley beverage for us. He said, Messenger of Allah, the say still remains on you. Yeah, there remains the brightness of the day. He said, come down and prepare barley drink for us. So he came down and prepared barley drink. The Messenger of Allah drank it and said, when you see that the night approaches from this side, he who fasts has reached the time to break it. And he pointed to the east with his finger. Great Sahih. Chapter 786. The recommendation of hastening to break the fast. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, religion will continue to prevail as long as people hasten to break the fast, because the Jews and the Christians delay doing so. Great Hassan. Narrated Abu Atiyah. I and Masruq entered upon Aisha, and we said, Mother of believers, there are two persons from the companions of the Muhammad. One of them hastens to break the fast and hastens to pray, while the other delays to break the fast and delays praying. She asked, which of them hastens to break the fast and hasten to pray? We replied, Abd Allah bi Masud. She said, thus did the Messenger of Allah do. Great Sahih. Chapter 787. What to use to break one's fast. Narrated Salman ibn Amir. The Prophet said, when one of you is fasting, he should break his fast with dates, but if he cannot get any, then he should break his fast with water, for water is purifying. Great Daif. Narrated Anas ibn Malik. The Messenger of Allah used to break his fast before praying with some fresh dates. But if there were no fresh dates, he had a few dry dates, and if there were no dry dates, he took some mouthfuls of water. Great Hassan Sahih. Chapter 788. The saying at the time of breaking the fast. Marwan ibn Salim al-Makalfa said, I saw Ibn Umar holding his beard with his hand and cutting what exceeded the handful of it. He, Ibn Umar, said that the Prophet said, when he broke his fast, thirst has gone, the arteries are moist, and the reward is sure, if Allah wills. Great Hassan. Narrated Mu'ad ibn Surah. The Prophet of Allah used to say when he broke his fast, O Allah, for thee I have fasted, and with thy provision I have broken my fast. Great Da'if. Chapter 789. Breaking the fast before sunset. Narrated Asma, daughter of Abu Bakr. We broke the fast one during Ramadan, when it was cloudy in the lifetime of the Messenger of Allah. Then the sun rose. Abu Usama said, I said to Hisham, were they commanded to atone for it? He replied, that was inevitable. Great Sahih. Chapter 790. Al-Wisal, continuous fasting. Narrated Ibn Umar, the Messenger of Allah prohibited perpetual fasting. They, the people, said, you keep perpetual fasting. Messenger of Allah, he said, my position is not like that yours. I am provided with food and drink. Great Sahih. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, the Messenger of Allah, as saying, do not observe perpetual fasting. If any of you wants to observe perpetual fast, he should observe it until the dawn. They, the people, asked, you observe perpetual fast? He replied, my position is not like that of yours. There is one who gives me to eat, and there is one who gives me to drink. Great Sahih. Chapter 791. A fasting person backbiting. Narrated Abu Huraira, the Messenger of Allah, as saying, if anyone does not abandon falsehood and action is accordance with it, Allah has no need that he should abandon his food and drink. The narrator Ahmad bin Yunus said, I learnt the chain of narrators from Ibn Abi Dib, and a man by his side made me understand the tradition. I think he was his cousin. Great Sahih. Narrated Abu Huraira, the Prophet, as saying, fast is a shield. When one of you is fasting, he should neither behave in an obscene manner nor foolishly. If a man fights or abuses him, he should say, I am fasting, I am fasting. Great Sahih. Chapter 792. Ta'i Sivak for the fasting person. Narrated Amir ibn Rabia. I have seen the Messenger of Allah using a toothstick while he was fasting. Musaddad added in his version, more often than I could count. Great Da'if. Chapter 793. The fasting person pouring water upon himself due to thirst and exaggerating in sniffing water into the nose. Narrated a companion of the Prophet. Abu Bakr ibn Abdur Rahman reported on the authority of a companion of the Prophet, I saw the Prophet commanding the people while he was traveling on the occasion of the conquest of Mecca not to observe fast. He said, be strong, for your enemy, the Messenger of Allah, fasted himself. Narrated Abu Bakr, a man who narrated his tradition to me, said, I have seen the Messenger of Allah in Al-Arj pouring water over his head while he was fasting, either because of thirst or because of heat. Great Sahih. Narrated Laqit ibn Sabura. The Prophet said, "Snuff up water freely unless you are fasting." Great Sahih. Chapter 794. The fasting person being cupped. Narrated Tawban. The Prophet said, "A man who cupped and a man who has himself cupped broke their fast." The narrator Shayban said in his version, "Abu Kilaba told me that Abu Asma ar-Rabi told him that Tawban, the client of the Messenger of Allah, told him that he heard the Prophet say this." Great Sahih. Narrated Shaddad ibn Aws. The tradition mentioned above, number 2361, has also been transmitted by Shaddad ibn Aws through a different chain of narrators. This version adds, "While Shaddad ibn Aws was walking along with the Prophet, the narrator then transmitted the rest of the tradition to the same effect." Great Sahih. Narrated Shaddad bin Aws. The Messenger of Allah came to a man at al-Baqi while he was cupping on the 18th of Ramadan. He, the Prophet, was holding my hand. Thereupon he said, "A man who cups and a man who gets himself cupped break their fast." Abu Dawud said. The narrator Khalid al-Haddah transmitted a similar tradition from Abu Kilaba through a different chain of narrators mentioned by the narrator Ayyub. Great Sahih. Narrated Tawban, the client of the Prophet. The Prophet as saying, "A man who cups and a man who gets himself cupped break their fast." Great Sahih. Narrated Tawban. The Prophet as saying, "A man who cups and a man who gets himself cupped break their fast." Abu Dawud said. Ibn Tawban transmitted a similar tradition from his father on the authority of Makul through a chain of narrators mentioned by him. Great Sahih. Chapter 795. Regarding the allowance for that, narrated Ibn Abbas. The Messenger of Allah had himself cupped when he was fasting. Abu Dawud said. Wuhayb bin Khalid narrated a similar tradition from Ayyub through a different chain of narrators. Jafar bin Rabi'a and Hisham, that is Ibn Hassan, narrated a similar tradition from Ikrimah on the authority of Ibn Abbas. Great Sahih. Narrated Abdullah ibn Abbas. The Messenger of Allah had himself cupped when he was fasting and wearing Iram, pilgrim garb. Great Daif. Narrated Abd al-Rahman bi Abi Layla. A man from the companions of the Prophet told me that the Messenger of Allah prohibited cupping and perpetual fasting, but he had not made them unlawful, showing mercy on his companions. Thereupon he was asked, Messenger of Allah, you observe perpetual fast till dawn? He replied, I observe perpetual fast till dawn, for my Lord gives me food and drink. Great Sahih. Narrated Anas. We would not allow a man who was fasting to get himself cupped due to abomination of hardship. Great Sahih. Chapter 796, regarding the fasting person having a wet dream during the day of Ramadan. Narrated a man from the companions. The Messenger of Allah said, neither vomiting nor emission nor cupping breaks the fast of the one who is fasting. Great Da'if. Chapter 797, regarding a fasting person using kohl at the time of sleeping. Narrated Mabad bi Hudha. The Prophet commanded to apply collyrium mixed with musk at the time of sleep. He said, a man who is fasting should abstain from it. Abu Dawud said, Yahya bi Ma'in said to me, this tradition about the use of collyrium is munkar. It contradicts the sound traditions on the subject. Great Da'if. Ubayd Allah bi Abu Bakr bi Anas reported on the authority of Anas bi Malik that he used to apply collyrium when he was fasting. Great Hassan Mawkuf. Al-Amas said, I did not see any of our companions who abominated the use of collyrium by a man who fasting. Ibrahim would permit the man who was fasting to apply collyrium with aloes. Great Hassan. Chapter 798, the fasting person who intentionally vomits. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, if one has a sudden attack of vomiting while one is fasting, no atonement is required of him. But if he vomits intentionally, he must make atonement. Great Sahih. Narrated Madan bi Tala that Abu ad-Darda narrated to him, the Messenger of Allah vomited and broke his fast. Then I met Tawban, the client of the Messenger of Allah, in the mosque in Damascus. I said to him, Abu al-Darda has told me that the Messenger of Allah vomited and broke his fast. He said he spoke the truth, and I poured out water for his ablution. Great Sahih. Chapter 799, kissing for a fasting person. Narrated Aisha, the Messenger of Allah used to kiss and embrace while he was fasting, but he was the one of you who had most control over his desire. Great Sahih. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet used to kiss me during the month of fasting. Great Sahih. Narrated Aisha Ummul-Muminin, the Messenger of Allah used to kiss me when he was fasting and when I was fasting. Great Sahih. Narrated Umar ibn al-Khattab, I got excited, so I kissed while I was fasting. I then said, Messenger of Allah, I have done a big deed. I kissed while I was fasting. He said, what do you think if you rinse your mouth with water while you are fasting? The narrator Isa ibn Hamad said in his version, I said to him, there is no harm in it. Then both of them agreed on the version. He said, then what? Great Sahih. Chapter 800, the fasting person swallowing saliva. Narrated Aisha Ummul-Muminin, the Prophet used to kiss her and suck her tongue when he was fasting. Great Da'if. Chapter 801, that it is disliked for in the case of a young person while fasting. Narrated Abu Huraira, a man asked the Prophet whether one who was fasting could embrace his wife, and he gave him permission, but when another man came to him and asked him, he forbade him. The one to whom he gave permission was an old man, and the one whom he forbade was a youth. Grade Hassan Sahih. Chapter 802. Whoever awoke in the morning in a state of sexual impurity during Ramadan. Narrated Aisha and Salama, wives of the Prophet, the Messenger of Allah would be overtaken by the dawn when he was in a state of sexual defilement. The narrator Abd Allah al-Adrami said in his version, during Ramadan, due to sexual intercourse and no owing to a dream, a nocturnal emission, and would fast. Abu Dawud said, how brief is this sentence uttered by the narrator? This is, he was overtaken by dawn when he was in the state of sexual defilement. The tradition says the Prophet was overtaken by dawn in the state of sexual defilement when he was fasting. Grade Sahih. Narrated Aisha, wife of Prophet, a man said to Messenger of Allah, Messenger of Allah, I was overtaken by dawn while I was sexually defiled, and I want to keep fast. The Messenger of Allah said, I am also overtaken by dawn while I am in the state of sexual defilement. I also want to keep fast. I take a bath and I keep fast. The man said, Messenger of Allah, you are not like us. Allah has forgiven you your past and future sins. The Messenger of Allah became angry and said, I swear by Allah, I hope I shall be the most fearful of you, of Allah, and most familiar of you with what I follow. Grade Sahih. Chapter 803. Expiation for a man who has sexual intercourse with his wife during Ramadan. Narrated Abu Huraira. A man came to the Prophet and said, I am undone. He asked him, what has happened to you? He said, I had intercourse with my wife in Ramadan while I was fasting. He asked, can you set a slave free? He said, no. He again asked, can you fast for 2 consecutive months? He said, no. He asked, can you provide food for 60 poor people? He said, no. He said, sit down. Then a huge basket containing dates, arak, was brought to the Prophet. He then said to him, give it as sadaqah, alms. He said, Messenger of Allah, there is no poorer family than mine between the 2 lave plains of it, Medina. The Messenger of Allah laughed so that his eye teeth became visible and said, give it to your family to eat. Musaddad said in another place, his canine teeth. Grade Sahih. This tradition has also been transmitted by Al-Suri through a different chain of narrators to the same effect. Al-Suri added in his version, This was a special concession for him. If a man commits this act today, the expiation is necessary for him. Abu Dawud said, Al-Layth bi Sa'd al-Avsai, Mansur bi al-Mutamir and Iraq bi Malik have narrated this tradition, like the one narrated by Ibn Uyayna. Al-Avsai narrated in his version the words, "Beg pardon of Allah, great Sahih." Narrated Abu Huraira. A man broke his fast intentionally during Ramadan. The Messenger of Allah commanded him to emancipate a slave or fast for 2 months or feed 60 poor men. He said, "I cannot provide." The Messenger of Allah said, "Sit down." Thereafter, a huge basket of dates arak was brought to the Messenger of Allah. He said, "Take this and give it as sadaqah." Alms. He said, "Messenger of Allah, there is no poorer than I." The Messenger of Allah thereupon laughed so that his canine teeth became visible and said, "Eat it yourself." Abu Dawud said, Ibn Jurayj narrated it from Al-Suri in the wordings of the narrator Malik that a man broke his fast. This version says, "You should either free a slave or fast for 2 months or provide food for 60 poor men." Great Sahih. Abu Huraira said, "A man came to the Prophet. He broke his fast during Ramadan. He then narrated the rest of this tradition, adding, then a huge basket containing 15 sa'as of dates was brought to him. He said, "Eat it yourself and your family, and keep one fast and beg pardon of Allah." Great Sahih. Narrated Aisha, wife of Prophet. A man came to the Prophet during Ramadan in the mosque. He said, "Messenger of Allah, I am burnt." The Prophet asked him, "What happened to him?" He said, "I had sexual intercourse with my wife." He said, "Give sadaqah, alms." He said, "I swear by Allah, I possess nothing with me, and I cannot do this." He said, "Sit down." He sat down. While he was waiting, a man came forward, driving his donkey loaded with food. The Messenger of Allah said, "Where is the man who was burnt just now?" Thereupon, the man stood up. The Messenger of Allah said, "Give it as sadaqah, alms." He asked, "Messenger of Allah, to others than us? By Allah, we are hungry. We have nothing to eat." He said, "Eat it yourselves." Great Sahih. The tradition mentioned above has also been transmitted by Aisha through a different chain of narrators. This version adds, "A huge basket containing 20 sa'as of dates was brought." Great Munkar. Chapter 804. The severe threat for one who intentionally breaks his fast. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "If anyone breaks his fast one day in Ramadan without a concession granted to him by Allah, a perpetual fast will not atone for it." Great Daif. The tradition mentioned above has also been transmitted by Abu Huraira through a different chain of narrators, similar to the tradition narrated by Ibn Kathir and Sulaiman, Abu Dawud said, Sufyan and Shuba differed among themselves on the name of the narrator Ibn al-Mutawas and Abu al-Mutawas, great Daif. Chapter 805. Whoever ate forgetfully. Narrated Abu Huraira, a man came to the Prophet and said, Messenger of Allah, I ate and drank in forgetfulness when I was fasting. He said, Allah had fed you and given you drink. Great Sahih. Chapter 806. Delay in making up missed days of Ramadan. Narrated Aisha, if I had some part of the fast of Ramadan to make up, I would not be able to atone for it except in Shaban. Great Sahih. Chapter 807. Regarding whoever died and some fast was still due upon him. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet as saying, if anyone dies when some fast is due from him, yet which he could not keep, his heir must fast on his behalf. Abu Dawud said, this applies to the fast which a man vows, and this is the opinion of Ahmad bin Hanbal. Great Sahih. Narrated Ibn Abbas, if a man falls ill during Ramadan and he dies while he could not keep the fast, food will be provided for the poor men on his behalf. There is no atonement for his fasts due from him. If there is some vow which he could not fulfill, his heir must atone on his behalf. Great Sahih. Chapter 808. Fasting during a journey. Narrated Aisha, Hamsat al-Aslami asked the Prophet, Messenger of Allah, I am a man who keeps perpetual fast. May I fast while on a journey? He replied, fast if you like, or break your fast if you like. Great Sahih. Narrated Hamsat al-Aslami, I said, Messenger of Allah, I am a master of mounts, and I use them. I myself travel on them, and I rent them. This month that is Ramadan happened to come to me while I am on a journey, and I find myself strong enough to fast as I am young, and I find that it is easier for me to fast than to postpone it, and I becomes debt due from me. Does it bring me more reward, Messenger of Allah, if I fast or if I break? He replied, whichever you like, Hamza. Great Daif. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet left Medina for Mecca till he reached Usfan. He then called for a vessel of water. It was raised to his mouth to show it to the people, and that was in the Ramadan. Ibn Abbas used to say, the Prophet fasted and he broke his fast. He who likes may fast, and he who likes may break. Great Sahih. Great Sahih. Narrated Anas, we traveled along with the Prophet during Ramadan. Some of us were fasting and others broke their fast. Those who fasted did not find fault with those who broke, and those who broke their fast did not find fault with those who fasted. Great Sahih. Narrated Qassa. I came to Abu Sa'id al-Khudri while he was giving his legal opinion to the people who bent down on him. So I waited to see when he was alone. When he became alone, I asked him about keeping fast while traveling. He said, we went out along with the Prophet in Ramadan in the year of conquest of Mecca. The Messenger of Allah fasted, and we fasted until he reached a certain stage. He said, you have come near your enemy. The breaking of fast will bring you more strength. Then morning came, when some of us fasted, and others broke their fast. He, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, said, we then proceeded and alighted at a stage. He said, you are going to attack your enemy tomorrow morning. Breaking the fast will bring you more strength. So break your fast, yet do not keep fast. This resolution of breaking the fast took place due to the announcement from the Messenger of Allah. Abu Sa'id said, then I found myself keeping fast along with the Prophet before and after that. Great Sahih. Chapter 809. The preference to break the fast while on a journey. Narrated Jabir bi Abdullah. The Prophet saw a man who had been put in the shade and saw a crowd of people around him in the course of a journey. He said, fasting while on journey is not part of righteousness. Great Sahih. Narrated Anas ibn Malik. A man from Banu Abdullah ibn Ka'b, brethren of Banu Kushayr, not Anas ibn Malik, the well-known companion, said, a contingent from the cavalry of the Messenger of Allah raided us. I reached for, he said, went to the Messenger of Allah, who was taking his meals. He said, sit down and take some from this meal of ours. I said, I am fasting. He said, sit down, I shall tell you about prayer and fasting. Allah has remitted half the prayer to a traveler and fasting to the traveler. The woman who is suckling an infant and the woman who is pregnant. I swear by Allah, he mentioned both a suckling and pregnant woman, or one of them. I was grieved for not taking the food of the Messenger of Allah. Great Hassan Sahih. Chapter 810. Whoever preferred to fast while on a journey. Narrated Abu al-Darda. We went out along with the Messenger of Allah for some battle in intense heat, so much so that one of us placed his hand on his head, or placed his palm on his head due to intense heat. No one of us fasted except the Messenger of Allah and Abd Allah bi Rawaha. Great Sahih. Narrated Salama ibn al-Muhabak al-Hudhali. The Messenger of Allah said, if anyone has a riding beast which carries him to where he can get sufficient food, he should keep the fast of Ramadan wherever he is when it comes. Great Daif. Narrated Salama bi al-Muhabbak, the Messenger of Allah, as saying, if anyone is on a journey and Ramadan comes, he then narrated the rest of the tradition to the same effect. Great Daif. Chapter 811. When does the traveler break his fast after setting out? Narrated Abu Busra al-Ghifari. Jafar ibn Jubayr said, I accompanied Abu Busra al-Ghifari, a companion of the Messenger of Allah, in a boat proceeding from Al-Fustat, Cairo. During Ramadan, he was lifted to the boat, then his meal was brought to him. The narrator Jafar said in his version, he did not go beyond the houses of the city, but he called for the dining sheet. He said to me, come near. I said, do you not see the houses? Abu Busra said, do you detest the Sunnah practice of the Messenger of Allah? The narrator Jafar said in his version, he then ate it. Great Sahih. Chapter 812. The extent of the distance for breaking the fast. Narrated Dihya. Mansur al-Kalbi said, Dihya ibn Khalifa once went out from a village of Damascus at as much distance as it measures between Aqaba and Al-Fustat during Ramadan, and that is 3 miles. He then broke his fast, and the people broke their fast along with him, but some of them disliked to break their fast. When he came back to his village, he said, I swear by Allah, today I witnessed a thing of which I could not even think to see. The people detested the way of the Messenger of Allah and his companions. He said this to those who fasted. At this moment he said, O Allah, make me die. Great Daif. Nafi said, Ibn Umar used to go out to Al-Gaba jungle, but he neither broke his fast nor shortened his prayer. Great Sahih Mawquf. Chapter 813. Whoever said, indeed, I fasted all of Ramadan. Narrated Abu Bakr. The Prophet said, one of you should not say, I fasted the whole of Ramadan, and I prayed during the night in the whole of Ramadan. I do not know whether he disliked the purification, or he, the narrator, said, he must have slept a little and taken rest. Great Daif. Chapter 814. Regarding fasting on the 2 Eid. Narrated Abu Ubaid. I attended the Eid prayer along with Umar. He offered prayer before the sermon. He then said, the Messenger of Allah prohibited fasting on these 2 days. As regards Eid al-Adha, you eat the meat of your sacrificial animals. As for Eid al-Fitr, you break, end your fast. Great Sahih. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. The Messenger of Allah forbade fasting on 2 days, Al-Fitr, breaking the fast of Ramadan, and Al-Adha, the day of sacrifice, and wearing a tight single garment, the raising of which discloses private parts, and sitting with one's legs drawn up and wrapped in one's garment, and forbade praying at 2 hours after the Fajr prayer and after the Asr prayer. Great Sahih. Chapter 815. Fasting the days of At-Tashriq. Abu Murrah, the client of Hani, entered along with Abd Allah bi Amr. Upon his father Amr bi As, and he brought food for him. He said, "Eat," he said, "I am fasting." Amr said, "Eat. These are the days on which the Messenger of Allah used to command us to break fast and forbid us to keep fast." The narrator Malik said, "These are the day of Al-Tashriq, 11th, 12th and 13th of Du al-Hijjah, and 13th of Du al-Hijjah." Great Sahih. Narrated Uqba ibn Amir. Narrated Uqba ibn Amir. The Prophet said, "The day of Arafah, the day of sacrifice, the days of Tashriq are the days of our festival. O people of Islam, these are the days of eating and drinking." Great Sahih. Chapter 816. The prohibition of specifying Friday for fasting. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Messenger of Allah, as saying, "None of you must fast on Friday unless he fasts the day before or the day after." Great Sahih. Chapter 817. The prohibition of specifying Saturday for fasting. Narrated As-Sama, sister of Abdullah ibn Busr. The Prophet said, "Do not fast on Saturday except what has been made obligatory on you, and if one of you can get nothing but a grape skin or a piece of wood from a tree, he should chew it." Great Sahih. Chapter 818. The permission for that. Narrated Juwayriyah, daughter of Al-Harith, that the Prophet entered upon her on Friday while she was fasting. He asked, "Did you fast yesterday?" She said, "No." He again asked, "Do you intend to fast tomorrow?" She said, "No." He said, "So break your fast." Great Sahih. Narrated Al-Layth, when it was mentioned to Ibn Shihab al-Suri that fasting on Saturday had been prohibited, he would say, "This is a Himsi tradition." Al-Awsai said, "I always concealed it, but I found that it became known widely, that is, the tradition on Ibn Busr about fasting on Saturday." Abu Dawud said, Malik said, "This is a false tradition." Great Sahih Maktu. Chapter 819, regarding continuous voluntary fasting. Narrated Abu Qatada. A man came to the Prophet and said, "How do you fast, Messenger of Allah?" The Messenger of Allah became angry at what he said. When Umar observed this, his anger, he said, "We are satisfied with Allah as Lord, with Islam as religion, and with Muhammad as Prophet. We seek refuge in Allah from the anger of Allah and from the anger of His Apostle." Umar continued to repeat these words till his anger cooled down. He then asked, "Messenger of Allah, what is the position of one who observes a perpetual fast?" He replied, "May he not fast or break his fast." Musaddad said in his version, "He has neither fasted nor broken his fast." The narrator Gailan doubted the actual wordings. He asked, "What is the position of one who fasts 2 days and does not fast 1 day?" He said, "Is anyone able to do that?" He asked, "What is the position of one who fasts every second day? Yeah, fasts 1 day and does not fast the next day." The Prophet said, "This is the fast that David observed." He asked, "Messenger of Allah, what is the position of one who fasts 1 day and breaks it for 2 days?" He replied, I wish I were given the power to observe that." Then the Messenger of Allah said, "The observance of 3 days fast every month and of 1 Ramadan to the other, yet the fast of Ramadan every year, is equivalent to a perpetual fast." I seek from Allah that fasting on the day of Arafah may atone for the sins of the preceding and the coming year, and I seek from Allah that fasting on the day of Ashura may atone for the sins of the preceding year. Great Sahih. The tradition mentioned above has also been transmitted by Abu Qatada through a different chain of narrators. This version add, he said, "Messenger of Allah, tell me about keeping fast on Monday and Thursday." He said, "On it I was born, and on it the Quran was first revealed to me." Great Sahih. Narrated Abd Allah bi Amr bi al-As. The Messenger of Allah met me and said, "Have I not been informed that you told I shall stand at prayer all the night, and I shall fast during the day?" He said, "I think so. Yes, Messenger of Allah, I have said this." He said, "Get up and pray at night and sleep. Fast and break your fast. Fast 3 days every month. That is equivalent to keeping perpetual fast. I said, Messenger of Allah, I have more power than that. He said, then fast 1 day and break your fast 1 day. That is the most moderate fast. That is the fast of Dawud, David. He said, I have more power than that. The Messenger of Allah said, there is no fast more excellent than it. Great Sahih. Chapter 820, regarding fasting in the sacred months. Narrated Abdullah ibn al-Harith, or uncle of Mujibah or al-Bahiliyah. The father or uncle of Mujibah al-Bahiliyah visited the Messenger of Allah. He then went away and came to him again. After 1 year, when his condition and appearance had changed, he said, Messenger of Allah, do you not recognize me? He asked, who are you? He replied, I am al-Bahili, who came to you last year. He said, what has changed you? You were looking well, then you were good in appearance. He said, I have only food at night, since I departed from you. Thereupon the Messenger of Allah said, why did you torment yourself? Fast during Ramadan, the month of patience, and fast for 1 day every month. He said, increase it for me, for I have more strength. He said, fast 2 days. He again said, increase it for me. He said, fast 3 days. He again said, increase it for me. He said, fast during the inviolable months and then stop. Fast during the inviolable months and then stop. Fast during the inviolable months and then stop. He indicated by his 3 fingers and joined them and then opened them. Great Daif. Chapter 821, regarding fasting in Muharram. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Messenger of Allah as saying, the most excellent fast after Ramadan is Allah's month, Al-Muharram, and the most excellent prayer after the prescribed prayer is the prayer during night. Great Sahih. Chapter 822, regarding fasting in Rajab. Narrated Uthman b Hakim. I asked Sa'id b Jubair about fasting during Rajab. He said, Ibn Abbas told me that the Messenger of Allah used to fast to such an extent that we thought that he would never break his fast, and he would go without fasting to such an extent that we thought he would never fast. Great Sahih. Chapter 823, regarding fasting in Shaban. Narrated Aisha Ummul Muminin. The month most liked by the Messenger of Allah for fasting was Shaban. He then joined it with Ramadan. Great Sahih. Chapter 824. Regarding fasting in Shawwal, narrated Muslim al-Qurashi. I asked, or someone asked the Prophet about perpetual fasting. He replied, you have a duty to your family. Fast during Ramadan and the following month, and every Wednesday and Thursday. You will then have observed a perpetual fast. Great Daif. Chapter 825. Regarding fasting 6 days in Shawwal, narrated Abu Ayyub, the Prophet, as saying, if anyone fasts during Ramadan, then follows it with 6 days in Shawwal, it will be like a perpetual fast. Great Sahih. Chapter 826. How the Prophet would fast. Narrated Aisha, wife of Prophet, the Messenger of Allah used to fast to such an extent that we thought that he would never break his fast, and he would go without fasting to such an extent that we thought he would never fast. I never saw the Messenger of Allah fast a complete month except in Ramadan, and I never saw his fast more in any month than in Shaban. Great Sahih. The tradition mentioned above has always been transmitted by Abu Huraira through a different chain of narrators to the same effect. This version adds, he would fast all, but a little of Shaban. Rather, he used to fast the whole of Shaban. Great Hassan Sahih. Chapter 827. Regarding fasting Monday and Thursday. Narrated Usama ibn Zayd, the client of Usama ibn Zayd, said that he went along with Usama to Wadi al-Qura in pursuit of his camels. He would fast on Monday and Thursday. His client said to him, why do you fast on Monday and Thursday, while you are an old man? He said, the Prophet of Allah used to fast on Monday and Thursday. When he was asked about it, he said, the works of the servants of Allah are presented to Allah on Monday and Thursday. Great Sahih. Chapter 828. Regarding fasting the 10 days. Narrated one of the wives of the Prophet. Hunayda ibn Khalid narrated from his wife on the authority of one of the wives of the Prophet, who said, the Messenger of Allah used to fast the first 9 days of Dhul Hijjah, Ashura, and 3 days of every month. That is the first Monday of the month and Thursday. Great Sahih. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Messenger of Allah, as saying, there is no virtue more to the liking of Allah in any day than in these days, that is, the first 10 days of Dhul al-Hijjah. They, the companions, asked, Messenger of Allah, not even the struggle in the path of Allah, jihad? He said, yes, not even the struggle in the path of Allah, except a man who goes out in the path of Allah with his life and property, and does not return with any of them. Great Sahih. Chapter 829, regarding not fasting during the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. Aisha said, I never saw the Messenger of Allah fasting during the first 10 days of Dhul al-Hijjah. Great Sahih. Chapter 830, regarding fasting on the day of Arafah al-Arafat. Narrated Abu Huraira. Ikrimah said, we were with Abu Huraira in his house when he narrated to us. The Messenger of Allah prohibited fasting on the day of Arafah at Arafah. Great Daif. Al-Fadl, daughter of Al-Harith, said, on the day of Arafah, some people near her argued whether the Messenger of Allah was fasting. Some saying that he was, and others saying that he was not. I therefore sent him a cup of milk while he was observing the halt at Arafah on his camel, and he drank it. Great Sahih. Chapter 831, regarding fasting the day of Ashura. Aisha said, the Quraysh used to fast on the day of Ashura in pre-Islamic days. The Messenger of Allah would fast on it in pre-Islamic period. When the Messenger of Allah came to Medina, he fasted on it and commanded to fast on it. When the fast of Ramadan was prescribed, that became obligatory, and fasting on Ashura was abandoned. He who wishes may fast on it, and he who wishes may leave it. Great Sahih. Ibn Umar said, Ashura was a day on which we used to fast in pre-Islamic days. When fasting of Ramadan was prescribed, the Messenger of Allah said, this is one of the days of Allah. He who wishes may fast on it. Great Sahih. Ibn Abbas said, when the Prophet came to Medina, he found the Jews observing fast on the day of Ashura, so they were asked about it by the Prophet. They said, this is a day on which Allah gave Moses dominion over Pharaoh. This is a day on which Allah gave Moses domination over Pharaoh. We fast on it out of reverence to him. The Messenger of Allah said, we have a closer connection with Moses than you have. He then gave orders that it should be observed. Great Sahih. Chapter 832. What has been related regarding Ashura being the 9th day of Muharram. Ibn Abbas said, when the Prophet on the day of Ashura and commanded us to fast on it, they, a companion, said, Messenger of Allah, this is a day which is considered great by Jews and Christians. The Messenger of Allah said, when the next year comes, we shall fast on the 9th of Muharram. But the next year the Messenger of Allah breathed his last. Great Sahih. Al-Hakam bi al-Araj said, I came to Ibn Abbas, who was leaning against his sheet of cloth in the sacred mosque, Al-Majid al-Haram. I asked him about fasting on the day of Ashura. He said, when you sight the moon of Al-Muharram, count the days. When the night of Muharram comes, fast from the morning. I said, would Muhammad observe this fast? He replied, thus Muhammad used to fast. Great Sahih. Chapter 833. The virtues of fasting it Ashura. Narrated Abdur Rahman ibn Maslama. Abdur Rahman reported on the authority of his uncle that the people of the tribe Aslam came to the Prophet. He said to them, did you fast on this day? They replied, no. He said, complete the rest of your day and make atonement for it. Great Daif. Chapter 834. Fasting a day and not fasting a day. Abd Allah B and B al-As said, the Messenger of Allah said to me, the fast most liked by Allah is the one observed by Dawud, David, and the prayer dearer to Allah is the one offered by Dawud, David. He would sleep half the night and stand in prayer 1/3 of it and sleep 1/6 of it. He would go without fasting one day and fast the other day. Great Sahih. Chapter 835. Regarding fasting 3 days every month. Narrated Qatada ibn Malhan al-Qaisi. The Messenger of Allah used to command us to fast the days of the white nights, 13th, 14th and 15th of the month. He said, this is like keeping perpetual fast. Great Sahih. Narrated Abdullah ibn Masud. The Messenger of Allah used to fast 3 days every month. Great Hassan. Chapter 836. Whoever said Monday and Thursday. Narrated Hafsa Ummul Muminin. The Apostle of Allah used to fast 3 days every month. Monday, Thursday and Monday in the next week. Great Hassan. Narrated Salama Ummul Muminin. Hunayda al-Qusay reported on the authority of her mother, who said, I entered upon Salama and asked her about fasting. She said, the Messenger of Allah used to command me to fast 3 days every month, beginning with Monday or Thursday. Great Munkar. Chapter 837. Whoever said that there is no concern to specify the day of fasting of the month. Mu'adha al-Adawiyah said, I asked Aisha, would the Messenger of Allah fast 3 days every month? She replied, yes. I asked, which days in the month he used to fast? She replied, he did not care which days of the month he fasted. Great Sahih. Chapter 838. The intention for fasting. Narrated Hafsa, Muminin. The Messenger of Allah said, "He who does not determine to fast before dawn does not fast." Great Sahih. Chapter 839. Regarding the allowance for that, Aisha said, "When the Prophet entered upon me, he would ask, 'Do you have food?' When we said no, he would say, 'I am fasting.'" Waqi added in his version, "Another day when he entered upon us, we said, 'Messenger of Allah, some pudding here has been presented to us, and we have retained it for you.' He said, 'Bring it to me.' Talha said, he fasted in the morning, but broke his fast that day. Great Hassan Sahih. Narrated Hani. On the days of the conquest of Mecca, when Mecca was captured, Fatima came and sat on the left side of the Messenger of Allah, and Hani was on his right side. A slave girl brought a vessel which contained some drink. She gave it to him, and he drank of it. He then gave it to Hani, who drank of it. She said, "Messenger of Allah, I have broken my fast. I was fasting." He said to her, "Were you making atonement for something?" She replied, "No." He said, "Then it does not harm you if it was voluntary fast." Great Sahih. Chapter 840. Whoever held the view that such person has to make it up. Narrated Aisha, Muminin. Some food was presented to me, and Hafsa we were fasting, but broke our fast. Then the Messenger of Allah entered upon us. We said to him, "A gift was presented to us, we coveted it, and we broke our fast." The Messenger of Allah said, there is no harm to you. Keep a fast another day in lieu of it." Great Daif. Chapter 841. A woman fasting without permission of her husband. Abu Huraira reported the Messenger of Allah as saying, "It is not allowable for a woman to keep voluntary fast when her husband is present without his permission, and she may not allow anyone to enter his house without his permission." Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. A woman came to the Prophet while we were with him. She said, "Messenger of Allah, my husband Safwan ibn al-Mu'attal beats me when I pray and makes me break my fast. When I keep a fast, and he does not offer the dawn prayer until the sun rises." He asked Safwan, who was present, about what she had said. He replied, "Messenger of Allah, as for her statement, he beats me when I pray, she recites 2 surahs during prayer, and I have prohibited her to do so." He, the Prophet, said, "If one surah is recited during prayer, that is sufficient for the people." Safwan continued, "As regards her saying, 'He makes me break my fast,' She dotes on fasting. I am a young man. I cannot restrain myself. The Messenger of Allah said on that day, a woman should not fast except with the permission of her husband. Safwan said, as for her statement that I do not pray until the sun rises, we are a people belonging to a class, and that our profession of supplying water is already known about us. We do not awake until the sun rises. He said, when you awake, offer your prayer. Great Sahih. Chapter 842. Regarding a fasting person who is invited to a walima wedding feast. Abu Huraira reported the Messenger of Allah as saying, when one of you receives an invitation for a meal, he should accept it. If he isn't fasting, he should eat, and if he is fasting, he should pray. Hisham said the word salat means to pray for him to Allah. Abu Dawud said, this tradition has also been narrated by Hafs b. Giyat from Hisham. Great Sahih. Chapter 843. What should a fasting person say when invited to a meal? Abu Huraira reported Messenger of Allah as saying, when one of you is invited to a meal and he is fasting, he should say that he is fasting. Great Sahih. Chapter 843. Al-Iltikaf. Aisha said, the Prophet used to observe retirement, Itikaf, to the mosque during the last 10 days of Ramadan till Allah took him, and then his wives observed retirement to the mosque after his death. Great Sahih. Narrated Ubay ibn Ka'b, the Prophet used to observe Itikaf during the last 10 days of Ramadan. One year he did not observe Itikaf. When the next year came, he observed Itikaf for 20 nights, yet days. Great Sahih. Aisha said, when the Messenger of Allah intended to observe Iltikaf, he prayed the Fajr prayer and then entered his place of seclusion. Once he intended to observe Iltikaf during the last 10 days of Ramadan, she said, he ordered to pitch a tent for him. And it was pitched, she said. The other wives of the Prophet also ordered to pitch tents for them, and they were pitched. When he offered the Fajr prayer, he saw the tents and said, what is this? Did you intend to do an act of virtue? She said. He then ordered to demolish his tent, and it was demolished. Then his wives also ordered to demolish their tents, and they were demolished. And he then postponed Iltikaf till the first 10 days, that is of Shawwal. Abu Dawud said, this tradition has been transmitted by Ibn Ishaq and Al-Awza'i from Yahya b. Sa'id in a similar manner, and Malik narrated it from Yahya b. Sa'id, saying, he observed Iltikaf during 20 days of Shawwal. Great Sahih. Chapter 844. Where is Al-Iltikaf observed? Ibn Umar said, the Prophet used to observe Iltikaf during the last 10 days of Ramadan. Nafi said, Abd Allah bin Umar showed me the place in the mosque where Messenger of Allah used to observe I'tikaf. Abu Huraira said, the Prophet used to observe I'tikaf during 10 days of Ramadan every year, but when the year in which he died, he observed I'tikaf for 20 days. Great Hassan Sahih. Chapter 845. The person observing I'tikaf entering his house for a need. Aisha said, when the Messenger of Allah observed I'tikaf, he would put his head near me and I would comb it. And he entered the house only to fulfill human needs, yet to urinate or to relieve himself. Great Sahih. A similar tradition has been transmitted by Aisha from the Prophet through a different chain of narrators. Abu Dawud said, and Yunus also narrated in a similar way from Al-Suri, and no one supported Malik in his narration from Urwa from Umrah. And Mamar, Siyad bin Sa'd and others have also narrated it from Al-Suri, from Urwa on the authority of Aisha. Sa'd and others have also narrated it from Al-Suri, from Urwa on the authority of Aisha. Aisha said, the Messenger of Allah used to observe I'tikaf in the mosque and put his head near me through the opening of the apartment, and I would wash his head. Musaddad said, and I would comb it while I was menstruating. Great Sahih. Safiya said, when the Messenger of Allah was observing I'tikaf in the mosque, I would come to him to visit him. I had a talk with him and then stood up. I then returned, and he, the Prophet, also stood up to accompany me to my house. Her dwelling place was in the house of Usama bin Zayd. 2 men from the Ansar, helpers, passed by him at the moment. When they saw the Prophet, they walked quickly. The Prophet said, be at ease, she is Safiya, daughter of Huyay. They said, be glory to Allah. Messenger of Allah, he said, Satan runs in man like blood. I feared he might inspire something in your mind. Or he said, evil. The narrator doubted. Great Sahih. The tradition mentioned above has also been transmitted by Al-Suri through a different chain of narrators. In this version she said, when he was at the gate of the mosque, which was near the gate of Salama, 2 men passed them. The narrator then transmitted the tradition to the same effect. Great Sahih. Chapter 846. A person observing I'tikaf, visiting the sick. According to the version of Al-Nufaili, Aisha said, the Prophet used to pass by a patient while he was observing I'tikaf in the mosque, but he passed as usual and did not stay asking about him. According to the version of Ibn Isa, she said, the Prophet would visit a patient while he was observing I'tikaf. Great Daif. Narrated Aisha, Muminin. The sunnah for one who is observing i'tikaf in a mosque is not to visit a patient or to attend a funeral or touch or embrace one's wife or go out for anything but necessary purposes. There is no i'tikaf without fasting, and there is no i'tikaf except in a congregational mosque. Grade Hassan Sahih. Narrated Abdullah ibn Umar. Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, took a vow in the pre-Islamic days to spend a night or a day in devotion near the Kaaba. In the sacred mosque. He asked the Prophet about it. He said, observe i'tikaf, yet spend a night or a day near the Kaaba and fast. Narrated Abdullah ibn Umar. The tradition mentioned above, number 2468, has also been transmitted by Abdullah ibn Budayl through a different chain of narrators in a similar way. This version adds, while he, Umar, was observing i'tikaf in the sacred mosque, the people uttered loudly, Allah is most great. He said, what is this, Abdullah? He said, these are the captives of the Havasin, whom the Messenger of Allah has set free. He said, this slave girl too? He sent her along with them. Grade Sahih. Chapter 847. The woman suffering from istihada observing i'tikaf. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said, one of the wives of the Apostle of Allah observed i'tikaf along with him in the mosque. She would see yellowness and redness. Sometimes we would place a wash basin while she prayed. Grade Sahih.